Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's a real pleasure to have you with us this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, depending on where you're calling in from. We're very excited to actually get to this milestone of having our Takween Accelerator kickoff event. We've been working nonstop for the last 3 months to have this event and get to this milestone. So we're really pleased that you're interested and you want to be here with us. Thank you so much. The agenda will go like this. We're going to have opening remarks from 3 different people, and then we'll have a panel on why Iraqi startups matter. And then we will announce the startups who have been accepted into our first cohort, and then a few closing remarks. The Takween Accelerator is brand new. We just came into fruition in June through a grant. We are part of the Yanhad project, which aims at promoting civic engagement and entrepreneurship for youth in Iraq, funded by the European Union and the Crisis and Support Center of the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. The project is implemented by Expertise France with the support of the American University of Iraq and Suleimani. Takween intends to speed up the growth of companies all across Iraq with the focus on those that are tech-enabled to improve the development of the private sector and job creation. The team includes 4 of us. So Pat Klein is the accelerator advisor, and he has been at AUIS for about 10 years as the director of the AUIS Entrepreneurship Initiative. Myself, Bassam, and Mufti joined in June, and that's when Takween became an accelerator, is when we all joined in June. So I'm working as the accelerator director, most closely with the mentors and investors and partners and sponsors. Bassam is our accelerator manager, and he has been working very hard developing all of the programs. He has just finished creating 48 lesson plans, and he will also be working with our partners and sponsors. Mufti is our accelerator ops and communications guru, and he is the one that is creating and posting all that awesome social media that you see across all of our platforms. We are actually sitting on 3 different continents right now with the intentions of all coming to Iraq soon. But for now, we will be supporting all of the programming remotely from where we are, and with the intentions of high focus and support to the startups in Iraq. So for the startups, this is what we've been looking at. The criteria that we just went through, we had an application process over the last 30 days, and the criteria for the startups who applied needed to be fluent in English, be technology enabled, already generating revenue, located in Iraq, and available for a high participation level. And what they will receive from Takween in exchange is no cost or equity share. We will not ask them to pay anything to participate. In fact, they will actually receive a stipend assistance from us during the months that they are in the program. They will be able to improve their business acumen and expand their market research. They will have one-to-one mentoring pairing and a pool of subject matter experts to work with. This is in addition to those 48 lesson plans that I mentioned. At the end of the cohort, we will have a demo day, and where all of the startups will have the opportunity to pitch in front of local and international investors. And Takween Accelerator also has some seed funding to some of the top startups at the end of the cohort. We will have another cohort in the spring. So if you are a startup and you're just learning about this, we invite you to apply when you see our spring applications open. We are creating a community, and this community is going to be a long-lasting, supportive, safe place to bring together all of these different types of people who want to see the success of startups in Iraq. So we will have founders, mentors, partners, subject matter experts, investors, and trainers as a long-lasting community. We're creating the community space on LinkedIn as a private group. So everyone who is invited to support us as either a trainer or a mentor or a founder will receive a link to be able to join that private community. And in that space, you will have this long-lasting relationship for months after the cohort is over. So founders will be introduced to investors, and they don't have just demo day. They will have the months afterwards as they're growing and getting prepared, that they can build those relationships with those investors. Trainers can meet mentors and partners can meet founders, so it'll be a nice space for everybody to collaborate. In addition to the startups and the trainers, we're always having ongoing recruitment of mentors, investors, partners, and sponsors. So if you would like to be in any of these capacities, please reach out to us. We are available on all the social media platforms. You can reach us at Takween ACC. We look forward to hearing from you in ways that we can partner together. I wanted to point out some highlights that are very interesting about what's happening in the investment world. So this chart is created by Magnet, and they're very good at tracking what's happening in the Middle East and the startup world and the ecosystem. And what they've shown is for the first half of 2020, there was over $659 million invested in 251 startups, which is 95% of the amount that was invested for the entire calendar year of 2019. That is great news. It's very exciting to see. Now, we may not see this double for the second half of 2020, just due to COVID. We are starting to see some slowing down. But if COVID wasn't happening, we would have seen this continue to accelerate at very nice numbers. So what it's telling us is that there's a strong interest, upward interest in investing in the MENA region, which is outstanding for us for creating this new space and ecosystem. Of the funding that has come to the MENA region during the first half of 2020, it came from 144 unique institutions that are doing the investing. And of those, 1/3 of them are from outside of MENA. So this is also good news, because what it's telling us is it's not just MENA investing in MENA. 30% of the investments are coming from outside of MENA, which means you have the attention of those outside. They are watching, they are listening, and they are investing in our region, which is really exciting. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask for opening remarks. I'm going to transition over to Alexi and have him share his video and have some opening remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone. Dear President Ferguson, dear colleagues from Takween Accelerator, and dear guests and audience. First of all, let me thank you for being present today in this very important opening event for Takween Accelerator and for the Yanhad project. I would like also to welcome the guests and all the startups that have been selected to be part of the first cohort. And I know how much the Takween team has working hard these past months to finalize everything. Before giving the floor to my colleague Nisreen to present in detail the components related to entrepreneurship, I'm going briefly to give you an overview of the Yanhad project. At first, this project is implemented by Expertise France, which is a French public international cooperation agency and funded by the European Union and the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The general objective of the project is to promote opportunities for Iraqi youth to constructively engage in addressing social problems within their communities by creating a strategic link between local NGO, Mosul and Nainawa universities, and local business incubators and accelerators. In this framework, we are operating in 3 main regions: in Mosul and Nainawa, with the universities, civil society organizations, and soon the incubators that will be opened by our partner, the station; in Baghdad, with the well-known working space and incubator managed by the station; and of course, in Sulaymaniyah, in partnership with the American University Iraq, Suleimania, and we are very proud today to launch the first cohort of the Business Accelerator Takween. Very briefly, the UNHAD project is composed of 3 components. The first one aims at supporting students of Mosul and Nineveh universities to have access to concrete opportunities for professional work experience. And for this purpose, we are enhancing career centers of both universities. As for the component 2, we are providing capacity building program to civil society organizations and financially supporting youth involvement in community service projects. But let's come back on the component 3 related to youth entrepreneurship with my colleague Nesreen. And again, today we are very glad to welcome all of you as part of the UNHAD project and to launch officially Takween Accelerator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexi. Now we'd like to hear from Nesreen.
Hello everyone, my name is Nisreen and I work for Expertise France as an entrepreneurship expert, and let me tell you how happy I am that we finally managed to start our acceleration program with Takween during this tough time from COVID. By the end of the day, we managed to do it online, which is something that's a great opportunity for all of us. Going to the UNHAD project, I am responsible on the component called youth entrepreneurship. The target of this component is youth entrepreneurship is encouraged through a network of accessible business incubator and accelerator programs for startups throughout Iraq. And our main activities is to set up business incubators and accelerator co-working spaces in Baghdad, Mosul, and Suleimania, like the one we're doing with the American University of Suleimania. Also to disseminate the entrepreneurship culture through social and cultural activities such as business context and master classes. Also, we will be doing a lot of intensive training programs in business developments and encoding with our other partners, the station in both Baghdad and Mosul. Also, we will be running mentorship and business advisory for more advanced startups in Iraq. Last but not least, to support access to funding for young entrepreneurs throughout pitching days, demo days, and also some networking events where we can also match entrepreneurs with investors. So we are very excited to start this very first acceleration in Iraq with the American University. I'm sure that it will be very serious yet very interesting training for all of you. Please, if you want to know more about what Expertise France is doing in Iraq, you can find us on social media under EF in Iraq. So please feel free to reach out for us also on social media to give you more news and activities that we're also doing with the local universities and the local NGOs in Iraq. Thank you very much, and I'm super excited for this kickoff.
Thank you very much, Nesreen. It was great to hear from you. Next, we're going to hear from Bruce from AUIS. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Eileen, and thanks to your team at the Accelerator. Part of my job as president of the university is always to thank people, and I want to be careful to thank some very important folks without whom this accelerator wouldn't have been created. Pat Klein, of course, the AEI director at AUIS, is the founder of the entrepreneurship initiative at the university, deserves a lot of credit for our being here today, as do the people at Expertise France, who have worked very hard to try to develop entrepreneurship, not just in Iraq, but in the Middle East generally. They represent the fact that the European Union and others around the world care about what happens in Iraq. And it's very nice to have those sources of support from governments in the European Union, from the United States government, which has been generous with the university, and from many others. Entrepreneurs need to have people to work with, and it's very nice to have people to work with in other countries. I also wanted to give a nod to Pat's predecessor at AUIS, Christine Vandentoorn, who helped to push the university to set up entrepreneurship as a discipline well before it seemed necessary or even possible. And Pat's wife, Alice, who through 5-1 Labs has done so much to shape the ecosystem here in Suleimani and in ERBIL in a way that favors entrepreneurs. I wanted to welcome you to AUIS, our university. These days, institutions are kind of hard to figure out because they're represented by people on Zoom calls like me, just like everybody else. So what makes a university different from an individual? I think you'll find, though, that as the restrictions imposed by the pandemic are relaxed, that universities make very good homes for entrepreneurship. I met the two founders, co-founders of my first company while we were all students at a university. That's not an uncommon story. Universities are good homes for entrepreneurship. They provide time for young people to work on cool ideas. And those are resources that are sometimes hard to obtain when you're working 9 to 5 in a job. So I urge all of you who may be starting companies or thinking of starting companies to look at using the resources of universities and other institutions that want you to succeed. In addition to being a good place for this accelerator at the university, you're now starting work as entrepreneurs at a very good time. The world is in turmoil. Things are changing dramatically all around you. The mere fact that we're conducting this event online is a radical departure from the way things were done just 8 months ago. So think broadly, think carefully about how you can take advantage of the fact that the world needs good ideas now. And you have the resources to try to introduce some of these new ideas. I'll close by saying that the accelerator is part of a broader concept. Eileen called it a community. I typically refer to it as an ecosystem that is a collection of actors, stakeholders, rules, regulations, laws, and resources. Money is the big one, but expertise is another resource. If you put all that together, you can get wonderful things in innovation. If you're missing even one part, it can slow down innovation tremendously. If you don't have somebody who started a company before to give you some advice, it can slow you down. You make mistakes that you don't have to make. If you don't have somebody to give you money when you need it, it slows you down or it can stop your idea. All of these things are needed. An accelerator helps to bring them to one spot. It's a meeting place for these different actors, resources, and rules. At the university and at the entrepreneurship initiative of the university, we'll try to find ways to shape that ecosystem to help you as an entrepreneur get things done. But it's not easy, and there are a lot of pieces missing or that need development in the Iraqi ecosystem. Just know that we are aware of this issue and we'll work hard to try to make your job easier. So thank you all very much. Congratulations to those of you who are about to get started in the accelerator. And thanks again to all of those people who care a lot about innovation and have made this day possible.
Thank you very much, Bruce. That was wonderful to hear from you. I appreciate everybody and the opening remarks that we had. We have a lot of support from many different organizations to support the startups in this ecosystem. And it's an honor to be in charge of the Takween Accelerator, leading that charge with a strong team behind us to get as much support and data and content and skills and funding into all of the startups. So what we're going to do now is have a panel that talks about why startups in Iraq are important and how they impact us. So I'm going to introduce Chris Thomas. He's the co-founder of Eureka and an investor, and he will help provide a regional perspective for us for the MENA region. And Alice Bosley is a co-founder and executive director of 51 Labs, and she will help provide a local perspective for the region. So both of my panelists are up now, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first, we're going to start with Chris and ask you to briefly describe the changes that you have seen in the startup ecosystem in the MENA region just over the last 2 or 3 years. What's happening? Give us a perspective.
Yeah, hi Eileen, and hello everybody listening. So just to give you some context, I'm here in Dubai at the moment, which is where our headquarters are. We're an equity crowdfunding platform. So we, as a platform, help entrepreneurs raise cash. Our clients are both the entrepreneur and the investor. We are based here in Dubai, but we operate actually in Europe and also Southeast Asia. So have quite a global perspective on entrepreneurship trends. But this is our backyard. The MENA region is where we do most of our business. And so from our view, I look at the entrepreneurial space through the lenses of funding, because ultimately that's what we focus on. But generally, the trends of the last few years, certainly in our markets, have been significant, and mainly, they're broadly based on the fact that startups and entrepreneurship is growing in the region, both in terms of number and size. Because of that growth, more money is flowing in, as you mentioned earlier, Eileen. For 30-40% of the current investments, VC investments at least, in businesses in the MENA region are coming from outside. That was unheard of a few years ago. But the reason that's happening is because the ecosystem is maturing, for want of a better word. There is a shift in industry focus. We've moved away from just when an emerging market first kicks off its entrepreneurship scene. Businesses are mainly focused on e-commerce, on logistics, on transport, on areas that there's a very obvious addressable need, and there's an obvious market for that. But as ecosystems mature, other areas, other industry sectors come into play. And so, for example, in the MENA region, for the first time last year, fintech was the highest invested industry, and that's showing that investors are moving outside of their comfort zone and looking at other areas to invest in, and equally within industries. So rather than there being just pure play e-commerce platforms, we now have lots of niche platforms that are servicing and providing something different. And crucially, investors are investing in them, which means that there are a lot of eyes now on the MENA region, and that is not just the common, usual suspects like Dubai and Saudi, but also in the wider emerging and frontier markets of the MENA region, of which I'm sure that Iraq will benefit greatly.
Thank you very much. And could you tell us what you think one of the largest influencers are of why you see this change that you've described? So we're seeing growth, which is great, and we're seeing attention, but what do you attribute that to?
I mean, that's hard to answer in a few sound bites. I mean, but ultimately it's money, right? It's the fact that money is flowing in. Governments are being very, very supportive of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Certainly here again in the UAE and Saudi, a ton of money is flowing in to try and stir the pot from an entrepreneurship perspective. They understand that if you're able to deploy capital and get the entrepreneurship space moving, you're going to create jobs, right? And jobs then have a long-term impact on the economy. But crucially, money is, as I say, money is flowing in from international and local investors, but also now, because we're seeing a number of exits over the last couple of years, that Kareem, for example, is in Iraq as well, sold recently to Uber. Not only does that exit validate the investment case for investing in early stage businesses, it also just puts more money in the system, right? So, we as a funding platform have literally dozens of applications from ex-Kareem employees that are spending the money that they got through their ESOPs and the exit, and they're starting new businesses. So, there's an avalanche effect, right? That money creates a multiplier, and you just get better entrepreneurs and deeper business opportunities, and it grows from there.
So it's nice to hear that those who were able to receive large funds after Kareem was sold are staying in the space, and they're continuing to be entrepreneurs and starting new initiatives because
they are entrepreneurs, right? They just were working for someone else, whereas now they can break free from the shackles of corporate and do it themselves.
Oh, that's great. And now, Alice, I'd like to ask you similar. So can you briefly describe the changes that you've seen in Iraq over the last 2 or 3 years in regards to the startups and the private sector? You've been pushing very, very hard with 5-1 Labs. And so what have you seen?
Yeah, thank you so much, Eileen. Thank you, President Ferguson, and everybody here in the Takween Accelerator. It is really exciting to be a part of this event and to see this amazing initiative launch right here in Sulaimani, it's so needed and so exciting. So just kind of like Chris did, to get a little bit of background on 5-1 Labs, we are a startup incubator based in both Sulaimani and ERBIL for the diverse entrepreneurs across the Kurdistan region and from across Iraq. And so we've been operating since the summer of 2017, and I think a lot has happened in Iraq's ecosystem in that time. When we started, we were the only incubator operating in Iraq at the time. And since that time, things have changed drastically, right? There's the creation of the station in Baghdad, which came, just shortly after us. There's Recoded running coding boot camps in ERBIL. There's Mosul Space in Mosul, Basra Science Camp in Basra. There's this strengthening ecosystem across the country that is being created just to support entrepreneurs and innovators across the country. And I think there are a lot of reasons that those changes happened. When we were starting in 2017, one of the things we saw is that young people had, and not just young people, people in general had a huge interest in entrepreneurship and kind of creating their own career and pathway through developing their own businesses. And there were a number of reasons for this. One was because, after ISIS and the budgetary crisis, it was so much harder to get jobs in the risk-free kind of government sector that people were saying, okay, well, I need to create my own future. I need to figure this out for myself. And so what we were seeing is this wave of interest in entrepreneurship. But unfortunately, despite the interest, I think there was zero support for entrepreneurs. In order to get funding from banks, for example, in order to get a loan, you had to have a government employee guarantor sign for you or be able to have a house that you could put up as collateral. There were no mentorship networks. There were very few places where you could get business support or advisory services. And there were some amazing entrepreneurs already operating mainly in Baghdad, like Miswag, which is still around today. But there were not many successful examples because it was so hard. So how could how could people be successful in that environment? And so it has been, I think, really amazing since that time to see more of those gaps being filled by different types of actors. Co-working spaces now make it easier to have an office space to launch your business from, and great internet. We have different incubation initiatives and startup support initiatives across the country that make it easier to take an idea and turn it into a business. And I think, and then there are, people like IOM's EDFI, which is providing funding for early stage businesses, and more other kind of organizations providing funding. And I think the next step in that process is, great, we have all of these early businesses, but how do we help them grow? And that's why we think it's so exciting to see Takween be created at this time, because I think this is the perfect time to take all of these incredible entrepreneurs and help them grow their businesses and really expand both across Iraq and regionally. So congratulations to all of the entrepreneurs that are about to join Takween Accelerator, and good luck on this new kind of journey in your development of your startup, because I think that this will be a huge benefit for the ecosystem.
And what do you feel are some of the biggest influencers that will make a difference on what we see over the next 2 or 3 years? Like, what do we need to see change or happen to keep this momentum going?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. the great thing is that I feel like the time is right for Iraq. We have currently kind of the Iraq Innovation Alliance across the country supporting entrepreneurs in 5 of the cities across the country, and more things starting in between. We have kind of funders from a grant perspective starting to provide funding at both the early stage and kind of growth stage. And then the last piece, which I think Chris mentioned, which is one of the most important pieces, is I think there are still gaps in financing, like great access to financing for entrepreneurs that want to grow their businesses. And I was at an ArabNet conference last December where a panel of investors basically all agreed in front of the audience that Iraq is currently the most undervalued market in the Middle East, and that Iraq is kind of the next stage of investment in this region. And we see people like IMENA and MSA Capital, and of course, Iraq Tech Ventures are starting to make moves into Iraq, starting to talk to Iraqi entrepreneurs. There was Lezu's recent very successful investment. And so I think that will be, as things continue to provide support kind of down that entrepreneur pipeline, I think that investment in financing is the next big thing that we have to see.
Oh, well, that's great. That's a great transition over to Chris. So Chris, can you talk a little bit about why you created Eureka and how it's helping the startups in the region?
Well, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I've had a few decent exits, and after exiting was an investor, was an early stage investor in businesses, and just found the whole process of raising money and also investing in deals or finding good stuff to invest in totally broken, right? It was very much network driven. If you as an entrepreneur knew lots of rich friends, you could raise money. And equally, if you as an investor happened to know people that knew people that were starting a business, you could find stuff to invest in. But there wasn't really a bridge to do that. So we created Eureka to pretty much be that online platform for entrepreneurs to meet investors, mainly using the power of crowdfunding, which is where we are really empowering that entrepreneur, empowering and inspiring that entrepreneur to go out to their existing trust circle, their customers, their suppliers, their friends, family, people they went to business school with, and raise smaller amounts of money from them, but from a number of individuals that then together collectively can build a big enough pot to give them the growth capital they need. We have about 30,000 investors on our platform. So entrepreneurs come to us and they raise a decent chunk of the cash through our network, but equally they need to be raising a certain amount of money through their network. And we really just give them the tools to shout very loudly about the fact they're raising money, very proudly and loudly across borders. As I say, we operate in about 12 countries across 3 continents, and can enable entrepreneurs from all parts of the world to reach investors in other parts of the world that they wouldn't normally be able to do.
So I know in the US that some of the investors won't invest in a startup that has been using crowdfunding just because of the stipulation between the different regulations. So can you talk about how you address that?
Yeah, well, one way to invest it is stay away from the US. The US regulations on crowdfunding are terrible and are destructive rather than supportive of entrepreneurs. And we're regulated in Dubai, in Malaysia, in the UK, in the Netherlands, and a few other markets, and certainly are non-US, right? So we stay well away from them. But again, as the crowdfunding industry, which we're part of, and I'd say we're one of the pioneers of it, one of the larger platforms out there, really also have matured and are providing now a better product than they were a few years ago, right? So one of the great KPIs for us as a business was, do VCs invest in the deals that we fund, right? Because if they don't, we're really cutting the legs off these entrepreneurs in terms of going to us in the first place. And so we've built systems in place, like, for example, we hold the shares on behalf of the crowd, so that entrepreneur will now have one corporate shareholder in their business rather than 50 or 100 or 200 individual investors. So it really cleans up the cap table from an admin perspective and makes it much more VC friendly. But really, VCs often, certainly US VCs, don't want to invest in a business that has lots of angels because they don't feel they have the same power over that business than they would do if all the money, all the checks were signed by VCs. Generally, I'm anti-VC as as a crowdfunding platform. Our business comes from angel investors.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and provide an opportunity to the audience. If anybody would like to ask a question to our panelists, you can use the Q&A feature. We do not have chat turned on for this webinar, but we do have the Q&A box turned on. I have a few more questions for my panelists, but I'm also going to provide the opportunity if the audience would like to ask anything specific. So while we're waiting for some of those to come in, I'm going to go ahead and ask some more questions. So let's say for Alice, how can the non-entrepreneurs support the local startup ecosystem?
There are so many ways. A lot of us are not entrepreneurs, though I guess 51 Labs to a certain degree is a startup as well as a startup supporter. But I think for people who are operating in the ecosystem, there's still so much work to be done to make sure that entrepreneurs have as easy a time launching and growing a business in Iraq as elsewhere in the Middle East and elsewhere in the world. This includes kind of advocating for better regulatory changes, whether that's making it easier to register your business, making it easier to grow your business, to get investment. Those all need to happen. If you could provide seed funding, if possible, you could provide mentorship or support. If you are in the private sector here in Iraq, entrepreneurs need partnerships. They need business mentors who can tell them what it was like to launch a business and help them go through the different steps. I think if you are someone who is maybe later on in your career, consider becoming an angel investor. I think one of the major things that is missing in Iraq is local investors who are willing to take this risk. And it is a high risk endeavor to invest in a scalable, innovative startup. But the impact, I think, greatly outweighs the risk. So if you have some extra money that you're planning on investing in a new apartment or real estate, consider using some of that money to invest in a startup instead. And that's one major thing that 51 Labs is actually working on, is we just launched a new investment initiative to basically help funnel some more money towards startups, because I think that is something that many people here are interested in doing, but it looks so risky and it's quite complicated. And so I think there need to be easier ways to do that.
And there's also, I noticed last week in the news, the brand new Iraq Angel Network that just got kicked off. And so that's also an opportunity for people who are interested. I believe they're also going to be providing some angel investing training as part of their initiative. So maybe there's a space for them as well. So I've traveled around the world and provided entrepreneurship training in many, many countries. And one of the very first things that I hear back is about how in certain cultures, you can't be seen as failing in any way. And so the ecosystem is very difficult, because if a startup tries to start something and it fails, and then they need to go do it again. Entrepreneurs try and fail and try and fail. And we know this, those who live inside of the ecosystem know that's part of the culture that we have. But it's not that way in some places. So I'd like to hear, I'll first ask Chris for more the MENA region, and then Alice, the same question. Like, how do you feel culture is impacting the startup ecosystem? Are you seeing changes, or are you feeling like we're still struggling around this, the not allowed to fail culture?
I mean, you're totally right in that fear of failure is a factor. I mean, it's not only a factor in the MENA region, right? That is actually a factor globally, but it is very prevalent here. I mean, take that one step further. Fear of raising money publicly is also a key issue, because a lot of the entrepreneurs in the early days would refuse to raise money on our platform because they felt it was shameful to raise money. That must mean that they're not, as a business, doing well. It must, because they're not making a profit, they need to go out and raise external capital. We had to really spend a lot of time empowering them and inspiring them to be proud of this. Facebook went through 25 rounds before they IPO'd, right? It's something to be proud of, that you've got to, your business at a point where you can now raise money and spend that in the right way. So it's something to be very, very proud of. But you're quite right. I mean, just generally, culture has a massive impact in the entrepreneurial mindset. In conservative cultures, whereas Alice said earlier, where, for example, you're expected to go and work for the government and take a nice stable job, it's very difficult to persuade your friends, family, your parents, whoever is the influence in your life, that you should basically jump off this cliff and start going to the crazy world of entrepreneurship. And that is difficult to overcome. But that over time, as this becomes validated by there's more noise about entrepreneurship and there's more stuff going on, that gets easier to deal with. But it is indeed challenging. It's a lot easier, if you come from a culture or family that are merchants or traders that understand business as opposed to the safe civil service job. But often that's a slow process to persuade those around you that what you're doing is the right thing.
Right. Very good. Thank you. It's a good point about where the background of the family would make a difference in the support the entrepreneur would receive. And how about you, Alice? How are you seeing culture impact the ecosystem in Iraq?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I mean, I think everyone watching can see that I am American. So I am definitely speaking as an outsider. I have also worked with entrepreneurs globally. Before moving to Iraq, I was working with entrepreneurs in New York City who were launching startups. And honestly, I think within entrepreneurial ecosystems, the culture is the same everywhere. I mean, I think you have just highly innovative young people who want to disrupt the economy and make these long-lasting changes, and it's just this amazing environment. I think the difference between New York City and Iraq is Iraq just carries so much more risk. The economy is fluctuating like crazy. It's I think 172nd out of 181 or 179 on the global ease of doing business report. I mean, this is one of the hardest places in the world to start businesses, and that just means that the stakes are so much higher. And so, yes, there's this idea of fear of failure, which I agree is a global one, but here also it just means that the stakes are higher. It's easier to fail in a place where there is less funding and fewer resources. And so I think that's where the responsibility falls on ecosystem actors like Takween and 51 Labs and others to try to make a safe space to fail, a place where if you fail, you're not losing your family's savings, you're just picking yourself up and brushing off your ego and starting again. And so I think this actually is more our responsibility, just figuring out how do we make this easier to do so that an entrepreneur can go through this whole process, including the failure part, which happens to all entrepreneurs everywhere in the world, and be able to pick themselves up and do it again. Because the best entrepreneurs are the ones that have failed multiple times, have learned, and have been able to do it again. And so I think that's just our job.
Very good. So in 1 minute or less for each of you, tell me about and tell our audience about something exciting, some exciting news or trends that you're seeing to leave on a high note. First with Chris.
Well, I mean, echoing Bruce's sentiments earlier, I mean, one of the most exciting trends for you in Iraq right now is the fact that COVID means that we're all behind our laptop talking to each other around the world. So, funding, partnerships, global expansion is often network based. You have to be there and be seen to be, face to face and have some face time in order to get stuff done. That's gone out the window now, right? So you've really got to feel like the world is your oyster. You can reach out to the four corners of the globe to pick up relationships, investors, partners, etc., because we're all doing business, from our bedrooms behind Zoom, and embrace that. It's a great opportunity.
Very good. Thank you. And Alice?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what I said earlier, which is I really feel like now is the time for Iraq. Other than COVID and other things are challenging, but in terms of where Iraq is in terms of the ecosystem, the interest from regional investors, the level of startups and what's happening, I think there is so much change, so much growth, and so much opportunity. Especially after COVID, how things are moving online and people are starting to use digital products so much more. I think that we'll see in the next 3 to 5 years that Iraq's ecosystem, and I am an optimist, but I do believe that this is the time that it really will blossom and grow.
Only up. We're only going up. That's great. Thank you both very much for your time and your insights around what's happening and why Iraqi startups matter. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to Bassem, and he's going to tell us about the Accelerator program and announce the startups who have been accepted into our first cohort. Bassem, it's all yours.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, everyone, our guests on the panel and the university, Dr. Bruce, and as well Expertise of France, Nesrine, and Alexis. This is really inspiring. I know you are all waiting to see the startups, but I spend a lot of time on the program, so I will have to talk about it a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. And yes, here we go. So when we wanted to start with developing the program, we said that from the first day, we actually are developing an experience. So in order to come up with this and build and design the experience, we wanted a mission statement that guide us through this. So we came with this statement, accelerating minds and businesses. So we think, and we thought in our program to put this, to focus on minds and businesses in a balance, where we change the mindset of the people actually goes into our ecosystem or our accelerator, people who come across our accelerator from the community, the founders, the hosted startups, and our partners as well. This helped us to come up with 5 key elements that we describe our accelerator program or experience. First one is transformative. So our program focuses on the mindset of learning. And instead of having traditional way of teaching and doing training, we work on helping our founders to find good information, because information is available everywhere and data is available everywhere. We try here to work on fostering a culture of experimentation, of being resourceful, of being able to ask and fail and come up again and do this and do things without feeling afraid of failure. Our program as well is inclusive. So we decided from the first day that our program is going to be gender fluid. We don't care who's actually applying for a program, from which city, what educational background, economical background they have, as long as they want and dedicated to learn and grow their businesses in Iraq and Kurdistan region. Our program is very intensive. It's not about the hours we put in the program and the commitment for this hour, but we expect really high commitment, but it's about the content itself. So our content is gonna challenge the mindset and the status quo of learning. So that's why we see our program is very intensive and will require a lot of mind power. And we will see how we actually, we counter this in our program design in the following slides. So we have here an amazing opportunity to develop the first virtual accelerator in Iraq for the first cohort. So our program is scalable. We can reach unlimited number of founders around the country and help them if they didn't have access to a physical, to join our physical space in the future. So we still have our virtual program that can help people and founders across the country. This is the last one. Fun is debatable because we're very serious people, but we will try to see if we can include some fun in our program. We have main pillars for our program in order to be able to guide us through these weeks and training. So the first one is people. So we focus a lot on people. Here we teach leadership, we talk about mental health and well-being, and as well creating a culture, like company culture that fosters diversity, inclusion, and innovation. The second one, product. Here we try to make sure that our founders have an amazing product, that it actually solves a real problem in the world and it's easy to use by people. through user experience and user design, experience design. Marketing. So if you have an amazing product and you really run a good company, here we focus going beyond just like putting some posts on social media. We're trying here to help founders think of how can I exponentially grow with the limited resources I have, because funding is an issue. So we try to address this in our program and help our founders to be resourceful in the way they market and communicate about their business. Finance. It's always an issue to go and ask for funding. As Ikra said before, there is people feel shy about and feel shamed. Here we work with our founders to be confident in asking funding and actually stand in front of investors. So actually this is a note for our investors that we're gonna prepare really good entrepreneurs, so prepare your good questions for them. And the second slide, I will show our program. So we have 12 weeks program. That's why it's very intensive. We require around 9 hours per week from workshops, mentorship, and assignments. So we're gonna expect entrepreneurs to work on their homework, like back home after they finish. So each week we have a theme, and each week finishes with tangible outcomes that the founders can implement directly on their business. So the first week, we talk about the product market fit. We make sure that entrepreneurs go out and make sure that they're solving the right problem. The second week, I call it anatomy week because we go back to revisit the business model and make sure that we have a scalable business model that looks at the growth, not back on the years before in the business. Finance, it's really important to have your numbers, to understand your numbers as well. These numbers will help you to forecast how much money you need to grow in order to spend to grow. So this week, we're going to talk about financial statements and the basics of finance. A product, as I said before, we're trying to have like an amazing product that fits the market, but as well, we need our entrepreneurs to be like, to empathize. So that's why we introduce here advanced design thinking skills, product development, and user experience design. Once we have the first 4 weeks done, now we have an amazing product, we go to marketing strategies. We build marketing strategies that fits with our product, and learn how to communicate our solution to our audience. And in order to know if our marketing actually working or not, so we introduce metrics week. Here we talk numbers, and these numbers to track our performance for our founders in terms of like a conversion rate, customer acquisition cost, and all other metrics that they need in order to make sure that they are running the right experiments. And because we are a tech accelerator startup, and tech-enabled businesses, so we introduce a tech week. This tech week, we introduce the latest trends of technology that's needed to automate and make sure that our founders spend the least amount of time on tasks that can be automated and maximize their effort. So we bring actually international companies here to introduce their solutions and offer trainings as well for our founders, in order to make sure for them to know what's available out there. A growth hacking, this is one of my favorite week. This week is gonna be about how we exponentially grow, how we as the founders in the region with very limited resources and maybe limited funding as well, can we exponentially grow with the resources we have? So here we work a lot on the mindset, having a growth mindset, and how can I use my intellectual property, my network to grow my business beyond where I live in my city and go regional. Sales week and customer service, this is fun week because here actually we're gonna put founders in a very like uncomfortable zone for them, and we can ask them actually to do real sales. So this is gonna be a really exciting week for us. Innovation and sustainability, we introduce, in terms of sustainability, the sustainable development goals. We try here to help the founders to align their business in order to build sustainable businesses that can actually benefit the planet as well. and make sure that they're solving a real problem that's not just like for the surrounding community, but also for the whole world. In the innovation, we learn more about how we co-develop like products with big corporate. We don't want our entrepreneurs to be afraid of talking to big corporation. They want to steal our ideas. They actually need our intellectual property. Then we need to know how to talk to them. So we teach this in our Innovation Week and Sustainability. We started with funding the first like the 3 weeks. With finance, we end with funding. Here we prepare our founders for the last week in terms of like preparing their pitches, due diligence, and investors relation. And the last week, the graduation and demo day, here we find if it's actually been working all this time or not, once we do the demo day with our entrepreneurs. Now, this is a shout out for our mentors and trainers who actually pledge their time and experience to volunteer and help our entrepreneurs. If you look, you find actually like people from across the globe with different experience. They joined us. I think this allows, because we have as well like this virtual accelerator help a lot to bring people from all over the world. Our trainers as well. I'm by myself. I will be attending a lot of these trainings just to learn from our trainers here from different parts of the world and different backgrounds and experiences. Now is the time for announcing our startups. I'm really excited about all of the startups we actually have in this cohort. We have 12 startups, and now I will introduce them one by one. So the first one is the Kakina. The Kakina is a marketplace that enables retailers to sell online using its web platform and mobile application, offering delivery, payments collection, and marketing to these retailers. The Kakina has over 7,000 products listed from over 40 suppliers. Congratulations for the Kakina. ENLIGHTORS, a social media management platform for the MENA region, helping companies manage and automate content marketing in 3 languages. FAM Academy. FAM Academy is a certified pre-marriage counseling services provider with a platform for family and relationship counseling that aims to increase the well-being of families in the region. Fix It, our platform and mobile application that helps people request maintenance by vetted professionals to fix and repair things around their homes. IoT Kids is a platform that teaches kids robotics, games design, and electronics online. KURDCOIN is a cryptocurrency exchange service, making it easy and accessible for local people to buy and trade in the cryptocurrency locally and internationally. Mr. ERBIL is a direct-to-consumer lifestyle brand of men's clothing that aims to break the internet once again. If you know Mr. ERBIL, they were featured before in international news, and I really can't wait to try their beard oil. Risky Project is an online educational platform that promises to prepare students for the biggest and the most important exam in their high school year. Shop Your Brand, an e-commerce platform that aims to make shopping international brands accessible for millions of people inside the country. SMARTMED is a cloud-based SaaS platform that aims to digitize the medical sector, one clinic, laboratory, and pharmacy at a time. Belen Organics. This is the time we actually wish that the event is physical so we can taste it from these organics. It's a direct-to-consumer healthy lifestyle food brand that aims to make healthy organic food accessible for millions through its platform. The Workshop. We always talk about the gap between universities and work environment. Workshop is an online educational platform that aims to provide fresh graduates with the soft skills needed to succeed in the 21st century, addressing the gap in the most traditional schools. Here is the list of our startups. I would like to to ask you all just for a virtual round of applause for our startups and our panelists and our guests. And back to you, Eileen.
Thank you very much. Very exciting. So we have worked very hard for 3 months to get to this point. So it's interesting to deliver it while sitting at home alone in my own space and not having any audience around or hearing any response. So it's different than what we're used to. So we have selected 12 startups. We reviewed over 100 applications. Of those applications, we invited 20 of them for live interviews. And from those interviews, we selected the 12 that we think will do the best with the type of curriculum that we're delivering, at the pace that we're delivering it, and through the methods that we're delivering. We will have another cohort in the spring of 2021 and in the fall of 2021. So this is not the only chance for the startups, and many of them that we talked to may not quite be ready yet, but they may be ready for us in the spring or the fall as they grow a little bit first. So it's we're very excited. We're excited because our first session starts Sunday morning, 9 a.m. We are in training, and all of these startups will be with us. So our next steps are ways that you can help us. So if you would like to be a mentor, our mentor application is always open. Just look at our platforms. If you'd like to be an investor, definitely come out and reach us so that we can invite you to our events to make sure that you don't miss any opportunity to see our startups. And if you'd like to partner with us or be a sponsor, again, reach out to us and we will find ways to make sure that we have great partnerships. In addition to the stipend that we're providing the startups, we, Takween, are also a member of the Global Accelerator Network. And the Global Accelerator Network is a platform that brings accelerators from all over the world into one community. And from there, they're able to leverage discounts and benefits for the startups by using group collective buying power. So we will have a suite of perks available to all of our startups through that membership. And we will also have an additional pool of mentors and subject matter experts. So if those that we have recruited are not enough to fulfill one of our founders' needs, we have a whole pool behind us that are available for us to pull from and support our founders. So no matter what their questions are, no matter what they're working on, we will always have a way to provide them this support that they're looking for. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap. The next time you'll see us will be in our demo day at the end of this cohort, and we'll look forward to showing you all of the startups being able to pitch their businesses. And I don't think that we had any questions coming in, and I think we're all done. So I just want to thank everybody for your time and giving us your support and your attention by being here. And we look forward to seeing you as soon as we physically get to come to Iraq. Thank you and bye-bye.